signing on, but in the interest of time, we can get going. I am really pleased to introduce my colleague from the Department of Health Services Administration in the School of Health Professions, Mohan Thirmalai. He is an assistant professor in my department. I guess he's been on faculty for about 4 years now. I can't remember. Time flies a lot. But Mohan's area of interest is mostly on, I guess, sort of the interface between disability and technology. And I guess I would sort of say an aim of your research is to improve the lives of individuals living with disability through the use of technology, artificial intelligence, and the like. So he's been thinking about these kinds of questions for over 19 years. He's had multiple pilot grants sort of develop his ideas, but most recently, and I think this is what he's going to talk about today, is that he's been funded by NIDLR to specifically look at, I guess, improving physical activity using online technology and the internet for individuals with disabilities. So with that said, Mohan, take it away. You've got about 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and so it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Alison. Let me share my screen. I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Just give me 1 second. Yes, this is the right screen. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Mohan. That's the easiest for you all. As Alison already told, I work in the Health Services Administration Department, and I teach user experience in our health informatics program. And so user experience focuses on making technologies used in healthcare more usable, more acceptable, more friendly. So that's what I teach. I'm also a co-director of a rehabilitation engineering research center we here have in UAB, and I'm the director of ICT for the UAB Lakeshore Research Collaborative, which plays an intricate role in much of the projects I'm involved in. All right. So I focus on a variety of areas. People with disabilities are my primary focus, but I do focus on other areas also. I'm also involved in diabetes management projects for other underserved populations. I'm involved in cancer prevention projects in the Deep South. I'm also involved in a few surgical outcomes-based projects. But today I will focus on two specific projects I'm currently working on. One is on diabetes management for people with disabilities, and another is much broader chronic disease management for people with disabilities. The first project, I chose this acronym AI for DM, Artificial Intelligence for Diabetes Management, but I wordplay with it. Sometimes it becomes accessible and inclusive diabetes management. So based on the audience to which I am talking, sometimes it becomes accessible and inclusive diabetes management, and sometimes it becomes artificial intelligence for diabetes management. So I am merely a facilitator of all these projects. My projects are based on a big team effort. This particular project is funded by NIDLR. Let me talk briefly about the funding agency because many of you might not know about this funding agency. This is a funding agency housed in ACL within HHS outside of NIDLR. Outside of NIH, and so they get a very small amount of funding, and they have a few funding mechanisms. And this particular project is funded to a mechanism called Field Initiated Projects. What it means is it's like the R21 equivalent of NIH. So you don't need preliminary data or anything, but there's a heavy competition. Yearly, they give out about 10 awards, and they usually get about 250 to 300 applications. And they have two types of projects. One line is called research projects, and another line is called development projects. So the development projects are for developing new technology, new programs, and so on, while research projects are for more testing your project you have already developed. One other thing I'll note about NIDLR and in general working with people with disabilities is given the small amount of funding and the lack of participation of people with disabilities in much of the research, there is people with disabilities cannot wait for the traditional research process to play out. Or to develop an intervention, they do not have 15 years, 20 years to wait, where every small thing is tested and slowly it comes out. So this agency actually focuses on technology transfer and knowledge translation. And so any proposal they review, what they really look for is, at the end of it, is it going to become one paper, or is it really going to reach the people it is supposed to reach, however small or big the impact is. So both projects you will see is more towards creating a program which can be sustained and scaled and delivered in a continual way. So moving on, there are several faculty, including Alison, who is involved with this project. As I'm involved in multiple projects, I have the benefit of having a big team of technical staff who are involved in all these technical work. And then this project involves Lakeshore Foundation, wherein almost close to 10 different people with expertise in various areas are also a part of this project. So moving on, why this particular project? About 7 or 8 years back, I first got diagnosed with diabetes. And my experience with, just understanding what is diabetes, how to manage it was super rocky, and still to date, it remains rocky. So, and all the frustrations I went through in really understanding what it is, how to manage, and the support really I got from, if we should call our healthcare system, was close to nothing. So then I could only relate it to the experience a person with disability would have to face when they have to handle diabetes. So as Alison told, I joined as a faculty about 4 years back, and this was the first topic I wanted to work on, focused on diabetes and people with disabilities. So what do I mean by lack of options? There are programs like the diabetes prevention program, now called the Prevent T2 from CDC. But those programs are all mostly physical programs. Very few are online, but they are not inclusive. Not inclusive in the sense the program is not built from the foundation on the consideration that a person with a disability would have to participate in that program. So it could be the built environment. The program could be offered in a local YMCA, but the local YMCA would have housed the program in the second floor, and there is no elevator to reach that floor. That's it. That person cannot attend it. There could be an online offering and they do not have closed captions. That's it. You're done. And there does not exist even a single program for people with disabilities to engage in diabetes management. Luckily here from UAB, the UAB Lakeshore Collaborative, through our center we call the National Center on Health, Physical Activity and Disability, we actually have adapted the Prevent T2 program by CDC. It's a highly regulated program. You can't just go and change the program or do any changes to it. We have offered a small addendum to the CDC's Prevent T2 program, which is exclusively focused on diabetes prevention. When it comes to diabetes management, there is just no option available at all. So that is the motivation to create a online diabetes management program for people with disabilities. So moving on, at a high level, what this program does is it actually borrows content from a couple of programs developed at Vanderbilt focused on people with low health literacy. They actually have a curriculum called the Pride curriculum. It's a 12-week curriculum. There is also one more curriculum they have. It's called the DLNet. It's diabetes for people with low health literacy and numeracy. And so borrowing that and making the content accessible and inclusive is what the focus of the project, paired with some technological innovations. So this project uses health coaching, telecoaching, and so we will have 4 health coaches who will be ACE certified health coaches, and they will also receive diabetes specific training through ADCS. So some of the highlight technical things we are doing in this is again based on my experience in diabetes management. There are so many apps out there, like MyFitnessPal and all sorts of apps. If you want to track your meal or you want to track your exercise, it is such a nightmare. You have to click through 10 different screens. You have to remember every single thing. You have to remember to do it. And it was a big ordeal. I did it for about 3 or 4 months and then I stopped doing it. Rather, I had to, at least I learned, how much I can eat and what I can eat. And then I continue to practice it, but still it's still a struggle. But here what we are doing is natural language based nutrition tracking. And so both for nutrition and exercise. And so let's say a person went on a walk or a wheel, as this program is for people with disabilities, they can simply say, text. When I say, they can talk to an Alexa, or they can text, or they can come to an app and they can simply say, I went on a wheel for 10 minutes today morning. Or they can say, I had an apple and a cup of coffee for breakfast. That's it. They have to type or tell, and the system can detect what they did and it can keep track of all of it. The system provides context-aware recipe and exercise recommendations. Context-aware in the sense, if a person is using a wheelchair and you send them a suggestion telling, hey, it's sunny, go out on a run, that is the most wrong thing you would want to do. So understand the person's context. Is it a weekday? Is it a weekend? What is the weather? Taking all of these factors into consideration and sending out exercise recommendations in a timely way. And similarly, context-aware recipe suggestions. Here, we intend to understand the user in a very deep way. And so every house has a standard set of groceries oftentimes available. In my house, usually we would have chicken, fish, broccoli, and a couple of other things, and then rice and few things. If the recipe suggestions coming to me are going to capitalize on the usual ingredients I have, cooking skills I have, the cooking tools I have, then the recipe suggestions become more meaningful. Rather than that, if I'm going to send a totally exotic recipe where I have to run out to 10 different stores, it becomes pointless. So here we are building a system which will provide context-aware recipe recommendations to the participants. And the coaches will have a dashboard through which they are able to provide coaching for the participants. As I already told you, all of the features of this project are available through multiple channels. People can connect through a website. They can install an app on their Android or iOS devices. Much of the features will also be available through text messaging. And so you don't have to really, if you don't want to use an app, you don't have to use an app. Just send a text message telling what you want and it's going to be delivered to you. Users are provided with Fitbits and Bluetooth blood glucometers. That way we are able to track their physical activity and their blood sugar levels. We'll be able to deliver content on schedule. The curriculum we have developed, the content will be delivered to them regularly on a weekly basis. But also coaches might figure out that a particular person needs help with a particular thing. So they can then deliver content on an on-demand basis. And the coaches are able to exactly see which of the content has the user seen, what have they read, have they watched the videos I sent. That way, when they are talking to the participant, they talk in full context. They really know what this person has read, what they didn't read, and so on. And so they can engage in better conversations. This is a 1-year study wherein there are 4 data collection points. For the first 3 months, we will have weekly health coaching calls going over the 12-week curriculum. And then for another 3 months, we will have bi-weekly calls. This is just simply more like a troubleshooting. And then 6 months with no health coaching calls. And so the idea is to see if by providing all this technology access, are people able to sustain their behavior for another 6 months. And so we have set it up as a 1-year program. So I'm not going to read out everything in this, but this is like the content I spoke about, the Pride curriculum, which really lays out 12-chapter curriculum. We take that entire curriculum and have made it accessible and inclusive and appropriate for users with disability. This is just a model I had in the proposal about the technology, all of the tracking and how we make it context aware. Caregivers also have a role in this project. It is my belief that caregivers have a role. Caregiver means a family member. You know, your family plays a significant role no matter what chronic condition you have. Particularly if you have a disability, your caregiver plays an even more significant role. So the caregivers would also have access to much of the information with appropriate privacy settings so that they can also be fully involved in the intervention. So let me, I'm going to just for a second stop the share and start the share because I forgot to turn on audio when I share. Just give me 1 second. All right, so when I talk about content, let me just show you some of the content we have in a draft form.
Welcome to an accessible diabetes management program specifically designed for people with disabilities. This new and innovative research program will help you to manage your diabetes and live a healthy lifestyle. AI4DM, Artificial Intelligence for Diabetes Management Program, is a free 1-year program for individuals with mobility disabilities. It is designed to teach you to become more knowledgeable about diabetes and develop good health habits. Topics in this program include exercise, healthy eating, stress and depression, oral health, foot care, heart health, medication, and men and women's health. AI4DM isn't your ordinary health class. It will consist of 2 groups. If you're in the intervention group, Alexa will provide you with guidance and health resources.
It's time to exercise.
You will also receive a Fitbit, a blood glucometer, and blood glucose testing strips for a year. All participants will receive $100 for free at-home A1C tests and weekly access to a health coach through text messages or emails over the 1-year period of this study. AI4DM brings together health education and technology to make healthy living easier for everyone. Interested in learning more? For more information, contact ai4dm.org.
All right, I'll just show you one more content-based chapter.
Chapter 7, Foot Care. Welcome to week 7. And today we're going to talk about taking proper care of your feet. Now, there's a lot to manage and think about when you have diabetes, and your feet may not be on top of the list, but it is very important to make sure they stay healthy. Diabetes can cause neuropathy in your feet. This means it can cause you to lose feeling in your feet, so you won't know if they are damaged or infected. Not taking care of damage or...
I'll stop it in interest of time, but for example, when it comes to this chapter, how do we make it accessible and inclusive? For example, we are currently filming a clip where we use a mirror on a stick. You can buy that from Amazon, or you can just even tie a mirror to a stick, or you can use your like a selfie stick with a camera. And then we show demonstrations of how you can check your feet if you are not able to bend and look at your feet, or if you're not able to touch it. And so we film a lot of similar adaptations for each of the chapters, and that's how we make our content adapted and inclusive. So formally, the aims of the project, is to really develop the program and then test its pilot efficacy and feasibility. This particular intervention is aimed at people with A1C level more than 8% and having a permanent disability. I'm not going to go into great depth, but as I already told you, this is a 1-year study. We will offer weekly coaching calls plus technology access to the intervention group for 3 months, and then bi-weekly calls plus technology access for another 3 months, and then 6 months of only technology access, and monitor people across 4 time points: baseline, 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year, to see if we are able to sustain the behavior. We have an attention control group, which means the attention control group they will also receive calls, but not really going into the chapter or the detailed content, but it is simply a generic wellness check sort of thing. Moving ahead, this project focuses on A1C reduction as a primary outcome. And so we will be collecting blood samples over the mail and directly sent to the labs, and we will receive the blood values. This is a national program which we are doing online, and so that we found that to be the most easy for participants. There are at-home A1C test kits, but we think it might be better that we get it through a lab just to maintain the high fidelity. We will be looking at the participants' distress level, quality of life, self-efficacy, family support, because if you remember, I told about involving the caregivers in the study, measure people's physical activity, dietary intake, medication adherence, and of course, we will collect about the details of the medication they currently take to control in our data analysis. We have a very strong fidelity monitoring plan for the project because this is a feasibility project. We want to track every aspect of it. And so we will have multiple dashboards and meetings and processes laid out to monitor every aspect of the project. Moving on, the status of this project, the content and technology development are in their final legs. Late summer, we hope to have like a small mini pilot, like 2 to 3 users trying the project for a couple of weeks to make sure everything is really working. And then we will be starting our RCT in early fall, the pilot project. Moving on to this next project, this is a chronic disease management project for people with disabilities. So many of you might know I was involved with UAB's COVID-related technology projects. And while I was amongst that, I got a call from the funding agency telling, hey, Mohan, we have this new announcement. I think it might be appropriate for you to go behind it. I really had no plan to go for this project, but then once I got a call from the funding agency, I was even more excited. So the motivation behind going for a chronic disease management for people with disabilities is, let me just, okay. So in 2011, way before my PhD and everything, just using intuitive knowledge and some of my colleagues in the NICPAD, National Center on Health, Physical Activity and Disability. That time we were in a different university, University of Illinois at Chicago. And then we moved here in 2012. So when we were there, with the help of a few staff, I designed a program. And we actually launched it in the month of February during the Heart Health Month. So we launched it on a Valentine's Day. And so we just call it the 14 weeks to a healthier you. It took about 3 intensive work from a lot of team members, but we launched a program, and to date, this program has had about 60,000 to 70,000 users who have registered to this program. And until now, this is the only online like health and wellness or chronic disease management program available for people with disabilities. There's just no program out there at all in which people with disabilities can participate. There are a few other, there is a program specifically targeted at people with amputation and so on. But if you move outside people with disabilities, the biggest program is this program called Chronic Disease Self-Management Program, developed by Stanford University by a faculty who has now retired called Kate Loring. Her work, I've always been super impressed with her work. She really started only this project in about 99 or 2000. And within 2 to 3 years, this project became a huge hit. And actually now this program is offered through ACL. ACL is again an agency within within HHS, Agency for Community Living. Every year they provide about 6 to 7 million worth of grants for different states and programs to deliver this chronic disease self-management program to their people. So this has been one of the most successful program. How she designed it was, she took a total user-centered or person-centered approach wherein she really spoke to so much people to understand what really a person with chronic disease really needs. In talking with so much people, what she found out was that managing the particular chronic disease was not the biggest concern of the people, but it was much more. It was much more than just that particular chronic disease, whether it is a heart condition or a lung condition or diabetes or whatever. People needed, in general, they needed nutrition help, like eating habits. In general, people wanted exercise-related help. People wanted to know how do they, handle pain, fatigue, and things like that, depression, and much more. This program is still now being offered. It's a paid program, but still this program also is not accessible or inclusive. There's actually a document put out by this program wherein they speak about pockets of accessible or inclusive versions available throughout the country. For example, there could be somewhere one location in Kansas where they provide sign language interpretation. There's one location somewhere in another part of the country where the program is offered in an accessible environment and so on. But at a larger level, there is no chronic disease management program for people with disabilities. And this program we launched, which is now housed by UAB here, is the only program available for people with disabilities. So I wanted to really go back to the drawing table and think of a much more broader program. Currently in this program, we really only focus on physical activity and diet. And also it was done about 10 years back. And so there's technology has changed much. There is much more technological implementations we can do, but also from a content perspective. So that was the motivation behind this project. And this project again involves a big team. I'm not going to read out all of this. This project is funded by NIDLER's Disability and Rehabilitation Research Projects program. This is like the RO1 equivalent of NIDLER. So when I wanted to implement this program, surely it's a very complicated intervention. I was on the search for a model or a framework which will really guide through the entire intervention. Whenever I am looking for a framework or model, I am looking for frameworks or theories or models, whatever we call them, which are very at a implementation level. They are not at a very abstract level, but rather at a very implementation level. And so an author from UK in the recent times had created a model, which is what I've adapted here, which really is a synthesis of much of the implementation science related models and so on. And they created a model. I took that and adapted it. And this particular project is a 3-year project as opposed to the 5-year regular timeline the agency offers. So I decided to focus until here, which is short-term outcomes. So I wanted to create an acceptable, feasible, and engaging and relevant chronic disease management for people with disabilities. But I also wanted to add one more thing, which is optimized. I will shortly go into what I mean by optimized, but I thought it's not enough that it's just acceptable and feasible, but the solution we are offering should be the best possible solution and not just the one solution we thought about. So what are the actual outcomes of this project? The outcome of this project is going to be a technology platform which will enable chronic disease management, a content package, a curriculum, and of course publications. So this project will be completely user driven. And so we are creating a stakeholder group comprised of people with various chronic conditions, researchers and policymakers and the like. And they, along with a series of focus groups, about 12 focus groups, and the stakeholder group combined with the focus groups is what will really decide what will be this curriculum. So in the first year of the grant, the stakeholders and the focus group provide input on what the curriculum is. And in the second year, the partners at Lakeshore Foundation will develop the appropriate, audio, video, and textual materials to accompany the curriculum. In the years 1 and 2, we will develop the technological framework, and then in the third year we will test this intervention. So moving on, the technological innovation we are talking about here, this project actually builds upon the diabetes management project, but we add one more layer here. So if you reach out to any big company these days, let's say you want to reach out to Amazon, you can chat with them, you can call them, you can email them. And the person there is not going to ask you too many questions. They're probably going to just ask you 1 or 2 questions, and they really know who you are, why you are talking and everything. And you can keep jumping, one day you can text you, or next day you can chat, next day you can email. They still really know who you are, why you are talking, and so on. That is called as convergent communication technologies, which are really really hot these days. So here, what we are doing is we are going to have a chat bot with human handover. And so what does it mean? So let's say a coach wants to track a user's blood sugar values on a daily basis. So that repetitive task does not require a health coach to really engage in that conversation. There can be an automatic message, and once the user sends the message, the chatbot can engage in a conversation style and take care of logging the user's blood sugar value. But let's say the blood sugar is too high, or there is some other problem which is being noticed, then the chatbot can transfer it to a human, which is in the tech world, we call it the human handover. And so this is about reducing the amount of work a coach has to do for much of the monotonous things. And also participants are able to communicate through any method they choose. They can go on a chat box we will have on the app and website, or they can text, they can talk through an Alexa. They can pick up the phone and talk. No matter how you come, everything is connected to a chatbot, and it tries to take care of much of the automatic things. And then when really necessary, it transfers you to a human. So now when the human wants to coach, the human really needs so many contextual things. Is this person using a wheelchair? What is their chronic conditions? What are the symptoms they are currently experiencing? Where in the intervention are they? Where is this person located? How is the weather like in the location this person is currently situated in? All of these things will be available to the coach in a very ready to go manner, so that they do not have to dig through stacks of papers or files on the computer. All of the contextual information about the participant is readily available. Not only that, it also helps with figuring out how do I talk with a particular participant? Let's say somehow the coach knows that participant is not doing well. Should I call him? Should I text him? Should I email him? Different people respond to different communication channels in different ways. Probably the fastest way in which I respond is someone texts me. If someone emails me, probably it's going to take a day for me to really get there. So there are different channels for which people are usually highly responsive. That also this system will be able to keep track and help the coach with deciding how to connect to the user. And we'll be able to provide educational content, and there's that human factor, the health coach. We will have automatic behavior and symptom monitoring. It's like, your interactive messages. I know many of you are relieved that health check was disabled. Me and my team were behind creating it. So the health check is like a example chat bot where you can monitor someone's symptoms, and then notifications. And we have gamification included in this project, which is here referred to as a rewards manager. I'll shortly talk about what we are doing with that. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but we have a stakeholder group for this project. We just got recently IRB approved. If anyone would love to participate in this project as a stakeholder, I would be super happy and delighted to have you. This stakeholder panel is comprised of people with disabilities, caregivers, and researchers. We hope to launch the stakeholder panel in about 2 to 3 weeks. As I told you, there are going to be 9 focus groups focused on getting, what should the curriculum look like. So for that, we will be talking to 9 different groups of people. And then once the curriculum and the outline has been developed, we will again go back to 3 more focus groups to get feedback on the curriculum. And so that really forms, this project has 2 research projects and 1 development project. So what I just spoke about is R1 and D1. In R2, we will be using the multi-phase optimization strategy. I'm sure most of you know what this is, but just in case, I'll just give you like a one-line overview, or a 1-minute overview. And so this is an engineering-inspired research design principle, wherein, in a simple randomized control trial, you create one solution and you assume that that one solution is the best solution you could create. And then you test it. It either works or it doesn't work. If it works, you don't know why it worked, because there are so many things in the intervention, you don't know what really worked and what didn't work. If your RCT gives you non-favorable results, you only know that it didn't work. Maybe you could do, like an exit interview or something to really understand what happened, but you are not systematically testing the components in it. In the multi-phase optimization strategy, a factorial design is used, wherein anything you think could be adding value to the intervention, you can those are called components. And so you can test individual components in a factorial way to see whether the presence or absence of a component really impacts the intervention. When I talk about impact, there are 2 sides to it. One is the gain you get out of it. Let's say diabetes. In diabetes, let's say A1C level is going to reduce by 0.1% because I did something, but the cost to do that something is $5,000 per participant. Now, is that 5,000 worth of resource okay for that 0.1% gain? And so that's what we try to figure out using this multi-phase optimization strategy method. And so this method results in an optimal intervention combination. And so you're testing different components, and then you can come out with, hey, I think, I don't need these two things. They don't add so much value. I think this is the optimal combination. That's what this tries to do. So here we have a really, this is still a 3-year pilot project in the sense that, 2 years goes for technology development and 1 year to really test it. And so we went with the 2x2 factorial design. And there are two things we are testing here. One of the most resource intensive thing in health coaching is actually the scheduled coaching calls. If the, in this trial, we'll be recruiting 200 participants. For the 200 participants, scheduling calls and calling them for a set amount of time is super resource intensive. So we are here testing, is it really important to have scheduled coaching calls when we are available through so many channels? You can text us, you can message us, you can talk to us through the Alexa, you can even pick up the phone and call us anytime. The content you need to really know is going to be delivered to you. You're going to get videos, you're going to get infographics, you're going to get articles, all sorts of things are being sent to you, and we are available all the time. And all the behavior monitoring is done through automated technologies like Health Check, just for simplicity in the discussion. So when all these are provided, are really scheduled coaching calls needed? If the answer is that scheduled coaching calls are needed, the potential to scale is huge. Instead of, let's say for 200 people, we need 4 health coaches employed. If the finding is that scheduled coaching calls are not needed, maybe we can really, instead of 200 people, we'll be able to handle 600 people. And so this will really help us with, finding the optimal resource balancing. On the other side here, we are doing a small gamification experiment. Every day, people are going to get through some channel a message to monitor their behaviors and symptoms. People have to respond to it. It's just like in the example of Health Check, you have to daily respond to that message. It doesn't matter whether you told you have a symptom or not. It's not an incentive for an expected response, but simply responding. In the gamified arm, we are going to give 25 cents for the first week. Every day they get 25 cents. Second week, 50 cents every day. Third week, 75 cents every day. And fourth week, they start to earn $1 a day every day. But anytime they miss a message or a call, they have 1 day to make up for it. By 1 day, if they do not make up for it and they actually really missed a day, their $1 level will fall down to 75 cents. Next day they miss, it will go down to 50 cents, and then it will go down to 25 cents. If they want to again come up to $1, they again need to go through 3 more weeks to build up and go through $1. And our hope is that by providing that high incentive of $1 a day for simply responding to a text message or a call, people are going to be more compliant. When I say compliant, simply monitoring their behavior, not giving us the expected response. So that is our research design. This is fully focused on a very social model than the medical model, which means we really focus on health-related quality of life. We are going to focus on 3 chronic conditions: diabetes, heart conditions, and lung conditions. And most outcomes you see here are self-report measures from the PROMISE. Psychosocial illness impact, self-efficacy on managing daily activities, managing emotions, managing medications, managing social interactions, symptoms, and so on. Both projects intend to create a usable and acceptable technology. And as I told you, I teach user experience. And so the hope is that we create a technology-based solution, which is usable, useful, desirable, valuable, accessible, credible, and findable. I'll stop there. I know I'm already over time and happy to respond to any questions.
That was perfect. You're not over time. And I'll open it up to folks if does anybody have any questions for Mohan. Really interesting project, especially the second one. I have a question on the first project. I'm out of curiosity, I can't remember, what is the expertise of the health coaches who are sort of behind? What kind of person is doing the coaching?
Sure. The health coaches are either an exercise expert or a nutrition expert or a disability expert. But to make them all the same, everyone gets trained on ACE health coaching, and they go through ADCES diabetes related coaching.
I couldn't remember that.
And we have like Andrea and Amanda Willig and everyone to provide support to the coaches as and when they need.
Okay, great. Other questions or comments, reactions, Mike?
Hey, yeah, no, Mohan, thank you. Really interesting. Thank you for sharing. Question about MOST and that approach, and have you had experience with that before? And if not, like, I think a lot of folks are interested in these adaptive trial designs, and just so, had you had experience with that before? If not, where did you find resources to kind of utilize that approach for that second project?
No prior experience, but I and Tapan have been experimenting with MOST through multiple grant applications. So this was the first one which was funded, and fingers crossed, hopefully we soon hear about a second one through NIH. So we have been playing with the MOST approach through grant applications, but it's the chicken and egg, right? You need the funding to do it.
Yeah, well, you are going to be the expert. So if it's okay, as folks have questions, we might send them to you. Questions.
Anybody else for any reactions?
Patricia, you are muted.
Thank you. I'm rusty. It's been a few weeks. Well, it was really impressive. You're very energetic. I really appreciate that. You're getting a lot done. I was just curious about how motivated you think, especially I'm thinking about the first one, how motivated you think people are, how easy is it to find people? And I mean, I think about like the people I know who are in a situation of having these chronic conditions with diabetes, and most of them are older, and how well are they adapting to the technology?
Sure. There are so many pieces to it. When it comes to finding people, recruiting people at a national level, here I am so blessed to be associated with the National Center on Health, Physical Activity, Disability. Nationally, we will be recruiting through social media and other means. And for example, when we launched the NICPAD 14 weeks, within about 2 months or something, we already had like 1,000 people. Actually, when I completed my dissertation project in 2015, I recruited about 150 people in a week.
Oh, wow.
And then
lots of interest.
About the question about how engaging and everything you think this would be. So in our NICPAD 14-week project, when we launched it, one thing we promised that we will do, but we had to stop, was actually the coaching aspect of it. We told people can call and we will also call you. If you are interested, press a button and we will call you. And too many people were starting to press the button. As I told you, this project, we simply launched it as a fun project. Let's just do it. It was not like we had exclusive funding for it or anything. This was even one of those deliverables we had promised to CDC. So we actually had to, and so that is actually an observation we have had, is that for people with disabilities, they face so many challenges that when they get access to an expert who can provide solutions, people want to make use of the expert time. That has been our experience.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I love the idea of using Alexa, because that really is one of the easiest things most people could do. So thank you.
Anybody else with questions? If not, I have one more. I'm going through my screen to make sure. So my question, Mohan, I was very interested with the incentive structure that you're using in Grant 2. And so what is the evidence around this sort of teasing people and building up? Tell me a little bit about how you...
Sure. Actually, I'm sure most of you know Dory. And so in Dory's pilot work, and so now she has a R01 using the IVR, interactive voice response. I and Bob are there in that project. In her pilot project, she actually provided incentives for people to call. Her IVR, interactive voice response system, was set up where people have to call. and she gave them people 25 cents a day. And she had a very high adherence with people calling into the system. So this time we actually, in her R01 currently, we flipped it where we call them and we provide, not to this extent, but slightly modified version, wherein they do build up on this. And this was all based on the various focus groups Dori had conducted. But the biggest thing was what we also found out, that people don't want to know that their time is only worth 25 cents or time is only worth 50 cents. So we then modified it to call points, and we don't really tell them, 25 points means 25 cents. We tell you, the more points you collect in the end, you are going to get, cash out of it. But in the end, it really converts to cents. But when it was told points, and the points are going to be redeemable for a gift, people were super motivated. And actually, someone has published a work where they did a similar, not a variable incentives, but even a fixed incentive. There is evidence showing that people are more prone to tech-based solutions when you provide them with a small incentive.
Anybody else?
I think Bob is trying to ask a question.
Oh, Bob is trying to ask a question? Okay.
No? Okay.
No, okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mohan. That's really interesting work, and congratulations.
I would really I'm really looking for expertise in any area and every area. If anyone has any interest in collaborating or even being a part of the stakeholder group or in any way, any sense, I'm happy to work with anyone who is interested.
So take him up on that offer. Mohan's a great guy to work with. So
thank you.
So, all right. So thank you very much. Any closing remarks? I don't know if we have another one queued up yet, another works in progress yet, but you'll hear from us soon as the core, and everybody have a great Tuesday afternoon. So thanks again, Mohan.
See you. Thank you. Bye.